Hi, I'm Andy Mioch and you're watching A News. Here are the headlines. Deadly Los Angeles wildfires rage out of control. Biden declares state of emergency. 19 killed in an attack on Chad's presidential palace. Lebanon's parliament elects a new president, ending the protracted political crisis in the country. Thank you for tuning in. Wildfires have devastated Los Angeles, killing at least 5 people and forcing over 130,000 to evacuate. The fires, still largely uncontained, have caused massive destruction and widespread power outages.
California is grappling with multiple wildfires that have ravaged the state since Tuesday. Fires have burned thousands of acres, including the Palisades Fire, which has consumed over 15,000 acres, and the Eaton Fire, burning 10,600 acres, claiming at least 5 lives and destroying hundreds of homes.
There were houses to the back of us, to the side of us, and to the street below, and that's where the problem came. The wind whipped up, the flames were up about 30, 40 feet high, and you hear pop, 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 sound like a war zone. In fact, there were 2 big explosions that actually shook the ground. And so I knew it was time to get out. There's time to be, brave, and there's a time to use some common sense. And common sense told me it's time to go.
The fires are currently 0% contained, with evacuation orders affecting more than 100,000 people across the state.
I just want to announce very, very quickly that we have a new brush fire that has just broken out within the last 5 minutes in the Hollywood Hills near Runyon Canyon. I don't have a lot of information. I can tell you we're throwing all of our available resources at it as we speak. I am seeing active water drops as we speak. As we have more information, we'll disseminate this to all of you.
In addition to the loss of life and property, over 400,000 homes have been left without power, further complicating the crisis. Economic damage is projected to be immense, with estimates for the Palisades Fire alone reaching over $50 billion, largely due to homeowners' insurance claims.
We've lost 2 schools. 2 schools, elementary schools, providing educational services to over 700 students in the Palisades area have been completely destroyed. We're talking about Marquez Elementary and Palisades Elementary. 30% of Palisades High Charter School was destroyed. We were on site and could not believe what we were witnessing.
Firefighting efforts are stretched thin as multiple fires burn uncontrollably and water shortages have left some hydrants dry in affected areas.
It's a lot, but nature wins. And I just saw a lot of friends' homes go down. Luckily, my place saved. We lost a lot of homes. And it's unfortunate, but that's, part of the world we live in today.
President Joe Biden declared a major disaster, promising full federal assistance to support firefighting and recovery efforts. As the situation worsens, additional firefighting resources from neighboring states are being deployed to California.
After U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said he would not rule out force to take Greenland, locals, including the island's government, say that Greenland is not for sale.
Greenland's residents and leadership reaffirmed their stance on the island's sovereignty, following remarks by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump suggesting he would not rule out military or economic measures to gain control of the Arctic territory. Trump's comments, made just days before his inauguration on January 20th, reignited global discussions about Greenland's strategic importance and its future. Residents of Greenland's capital, Nuuk, emphasized the island's resolve against external acquisition, while some of them stated island's strategic importance.
We have been together in a union for 300 years. We don't need to talk about that stuff. I prefer Denmark, of course.
I don't think we can answer that right now. I don't think so. Because we are not ready here in Greenland, we are not independent either. We are also not ready for which country we will cooperate with in the near future.
Greenland is so big that in my eyes, Denmark doesn't matter a lot to me. It's just a small country. We can't use them any longer because there are so many great powers in the world. So our partner should be a great power because Greenland is very wealthy, we have everything.
While Denmark has ruled Greenland for 600 years, the island's 57,000 inhabitants govern their own domestic affairs under an autonomous system. Prime Minister Muta Eide has consistently advocated for eventual independence, firmly stating that Greenland is not for sale. The relationship between Greenland and Denmark has faced strain in recent years, with lingering allegations of colonial-era mistreatment of Greenlanders. Despite this, Denmark's government maintains the decision about Greenland's future rests solely with its people. Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen echoed this sentiment, adding that while Greenland could pursue independence if its citizens desired, the notion of becoming a US state was improbable.
Responding to Trump saying the US needs Greenland for national security purposes, the Prime Minister of Denmark said that Greenland is for Greenlanders. William Denslow brings more on that from Brussels.
At a press conference on Tuesday, Donald Trump claimed that Greenland was surrounded by Russian and Chinese ships. For that reason, citing national security concerns, he called on Denmark to give Greenland up. If not, Donald Trump warned that Denmark could face very high tariffs imposed by Washington. Now, Greenland is an autonomous Danish territory, and Donald Trump's remarks have been met with a strong response from Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, who says that not only is Greenland not for sale, but she said that Greenland is for Greenlanders. We've also heard from French officials warning against the threat of seemingly attacks on what they described as EU sovereign borders, Denmark, of course, being a member of the European Union. When it comes to the EU's responses, well, Commission officials were quizzed on this by members of the press on Wednesday, and Commission spokesperson said that they don't comment on comments, but they said that sovereign states must be respected, or the sovereignty of states must be respected, adding, though, that as the EU braces for the Trump administration that comes into office on January 20th, they say that they are hoping for strong cooperation on areas of interest. A Commission spokesperson also urged the international community and the press, indeed, to dial down the temperature, saying that this at this stage is purely hypothetical, and comments from a president-elect, someone who is not yet in office. The EU does add, though, that they hope to find positive areas of outcome working with Washington going forward, but they say they are preparing for all potential outcomes when Donald Trump is in office, and that they will defend their interests as needed. But ultimately, the bottom line, as far as the EU is concerned, is to find areas of cooperation. William Denslow, Frey News, Brussels.
An attack on Chad's presidential palace left 18 assailants dead and 6 in custody, with 1 soldier killed and 3 wounded, state media reported. The attack on Wednesday night occurred while Chadian President Mohamed Déby Itno was inside the palace, but authorities said the situation was quickly brought under control. According to the country's foreign minister, 24 individuals armed with knives attacked the guards around the presidential palace. He said that the attackers managed to penetrate a short distance into the premises of the presidency before being neutralized by security forces. Hundreds of migrants from South American countries are rushing to the Mexico-US border, hoping to cross before the start of Donald Trump's second term. They fear will bring tougher immigration policies and border control.
Hundreds of migrants are rushing to the US-Mexico border, determined to enter under current regulations before President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration on January 20 brings stricter policies. On January 8th, nearly 250 migrants departed Tapachula, Chiapas, on buses provided by a Mexican government program transporting those approved through the U.S. Customs and Border Protection (CBP) app to northern border crossings. Meanwhile, in northern Mexico, many endure freezing temperatures in Ciudad Juarez, seeking shelter or huddling around campfires as they wait opportunities to cross.
Well, I feel joyful, happy, sad also to leave the family behind, but excited to give a better life to the girls.
We are here in Juarez waiting for the moment to pass to the United States. We have never been in a place like this, a place this cold, but we are doing everything to be there and reach our destination with God's blessing.
Fearing Trump's promises of tougher border controls and mass deportations, migrants are facing against time to secure asylum before conditions worsen.
Spanish Coast Guards rescued 85 migrants from a boat some 12 kilometers off the Canary Islands. The rescued migrants were brought ashore at the port of Arguineguin on Gran Canaria Island. The 7 Spanish islands off northwestern Africa's Atlantic coast are struggling to absorb a surge in irregular migrants, mainly from Mali, Senegal, and Morocco. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that nearly 378 workers have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the start of the war in October 2023. 263 victims were staff members of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East. The report also shows that the lack of fuel to operate electricity generators continues to severely affect the already decimated health system, placing the lives of patients at risk. Lebanon's parliament elected Army Chief Joseph Aoun as president, ending a 2-year political deadlock. Aoun was elected with 99 votes in a second round of voting and will fill a position vacant since October 2022.
Lebanon's parliament successfully elected Army Chief Joseph Aoun as president, ending a political deadlock that had left the country without a head of state since October 2022. After failing to secure the required 2/3 majority in the first round, Aoun won the presidency in the second round with 99 votes from the 128-seat parliament, surpassing the 65 votes needed for a simple majority. Aoun, who enjoys strong backing from the United States, was the leading candidate throughout the election process. His victory follows the withdrawal of rival Suleiman Frangi from the race, clearing the path for Aoun's election. The election marks a shift in Lebanon's political landscape, particularly highlighting the waning influence of Hezbollah, an Iran-backed group, following its recent conflict with Israel. The session, chaired by Speaker Nabih Berri, was attended by several foreign diplomats, including representatives from the Quint Group, Egypt, France, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, who have been closely monitoring Lebanon's prolonged presidential vacancy. Lebanon's political crisis has significantly impacted the country's security and stability, particularly amid escalating tensions with Israel. Despite a prolonged deadlock, Joseph Aoun's election is expected to bring a resolution, offering hope for an end to the political paralysis that has plagued Lebanon for over 2 years.
The Turkish armed forces have been put on combat alert due to a possible operation in Syria against Kurdistan Workers' Party militants, according to Turkish media citing military sources. Ankara is urging the new Syrian administration to act against the PKK, a group it deems a terrorist organization. Local media report the military action is among the scenarios being considered by Turkey. On the possible Turkish military operation in Syria, we're talking to foreign policy expert and ADA University professor Ferit Murat Özkaleli. Welcome, Professor. Thank you for joining us. Now, after Ankara warned it would launch a counter-terrorism operation against the PKK-YPG in Syria if the group refuses to dissolve itself, How likely do you think it is that the group will disband willingly?
They will not disband willingly. Of course, this is terrorism, and terrorism is always kind of an apparatus of a foreign interest when it comes to the Middle East. So I do not think that they would ever. But at the same time, we got to be very careful to look at the past history of this terrorist organization. As we see a lot of things happening in the past, and PKK was very much defeated. And I would like to emphasize a paradigm shift in Turkey's dealing with PKK terror. And what we see there is actually after, especially Hakan Fidan became the chief of intelligence in Turkish intelligence community, there was a drastic shift in the paradigm. And up until early to mid 2000s, the Turkish attitude was more of a fight against the terrorists. But with Fidan ascending to the head of intelligence community, there was a very drastic change in the perception. And what happened is that now Turkey has been fighting against terror. That means separating the terrorists from the alleged community that the terrorists are claiming to be representing. And if you realize that Turkey in the near past had made very interesting moves and trying to regain the hearts and the minds, even those people who at one point might have provided some at least support. But at the same time, because PKK was defeated in the past, they moved to Syria, utilizing the opportune moment of the civil war conditions. So practically, there was a metamorphosis. PKK transformed itself into YPG, and now the organization is trying to reestablish itself in the fertile ground of the absence of political authority. Thanks to the most recent developments in Syria, now there is a regime change. I think that YPG to kind of reconsider its position, whether they are going to be joining to the team or they would continue their terrorist actions. But going back to your original question, no, there would be no chance that they would be willingly disbanding themselves.
Well, the de facto leader of Syria and the leader of the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group, Ahmed al-Shara, said that all armed factions will be disbanded and integrated into the country's regular army after they ousted Assad. Does Syria, in your mind, currently possess the capacity to ensure all the groups do this?
Capacity building is the biggest problem in a post-Civil War situation, not only in Syria but elsewhere. So integrating all these former members of various factions and groups would be a beast, would be a challenge for everybody. It's not a smooth process. There will be a lot of problems that the new regime will be facing, has been facing, and will be facing. And this is the shift from, as you suggested, from having a de facto administration to de jure, the legitimate authority, the central authority, not only in Damascus, but elsewhere. Because as we had seen in, I think that where what comes to mind immediately is Afghanistan. Controlling the capital city, Kabul, or in Syrian case, Damascus, would not be good enough. You need to establish full power everywhere in the country, in the remotest areas, north, south, east, and west. So practically integrating those people who got involved with violence in the past is going to be a challenging task for the new group of administration in Damascus right now.
Ankara has demanded that Washington, its NATO ally, halt its support for the YPG. The group, however, is asking support from US and another member of the alliance, France, with Paris saying that the group, who they call Syrian Kurds, were their brothers in arms during the fight against the so-called Islamic State. Do you believe the three allies could find common ground here?
NATO will be facing a number of challenges in the multipolar world. In the first 4 years, the first term of President Trump, the President Trump had certain demands from the NATO members, which caused some stir in the alliance. And the alliance is no longer what it used to be. There's a lot of problems. United States is now being the lonely superpower in the alliance, whereas the others are not easily cooperating. And the war in Ukraine also revealed a lot of breaks, a lot of unbridgeable gaps in the alliance. When we put these into context, I think we see many of the members in the alliance are acting unilaterally. United States has been acting unilaterally. France is acting unilaterally. So I think that this is going to be kind of a moment of truth for the entire alliance. In the late 1990s, NATO, Turkey considered declaring certain emergency and making PKK an enemy of the entire NATO. And we had seen it after 9/11 attacks, 2001, United States. United States activated for the first time in history, and the last time so far, that the US declared Taliban as the enemy. And the Article 5 requires a collective defense for the NATO. So had Turkey activated the Article 5, the PKK would have been the enemy for the entire alliance. This idea later was dropped, but at the same time, I think that the NATO allies should see the situation for Turkey, especially those countries like United States and France, who had their own problems with terrorism, fighting against terrorism, and providing certain help to terrorist organizations would not be helping to the greater structure of the NATO alliance. So in sum, I think that NATO should make its decision. The Atlantic Treaty should be reactivated with its own original spirit. And I think that NATO would be much needed in the multipolar world. And therefore, the situation here is that United States and France must make a choice, a very important choice, whether they are going to be continuing with NATO and their commitment to the alliance, or perhaps they would still continue to provide a certain logistic help, which would be quite futile and dangerous, perilous in the Middle East setting.
Looking back at the previous Turkish operations that happened during the Syrian civil war, how long would you say that Ankara could wait on Damascus to deliver on the group integrating into the new system?
Now, Turkey has declared several times already that the independence of Syria and territorial integrity of Syria is utmost importance. All these little factions and groups are or have been fragmenting the country. So Turkey or other countries that are following international law and the Charter of the United Nations would abide with the requirements of territorial integrity of a UN member. So should any faction, let it be YPG or the others, are trying to dismantle the country or jeopardizing or risking the territorial integrity of the country, Turkey, with certain cooperation with the new legitimate government in Damascus, will take certain decisive actions because I think that the Middle East is in a dire need for peace and prosperity. And all these terrorist organizations have been creating a greater risk and challenge, not only ISIS, but YPG and the others. They have been collectively creating a security breach for Turkey, for the entire region. So what is preferable for Ankara and any sensible nation in the Middle East or out, we must collectively fight against the idea of terror. And Turkey has been very careful about not to have civilian casualties. As you can see, that in the Middle East, sometimes fighting against terror is get mixed with the idea of killing civilians to Turkey has always been refrained from those kind of actions. But at the same time, that if you are risking or kind of posing a security threat to a country, not only to Turkey, but any country, they would take necessary measures. However, they are going to be undesired, unwanted, but Turkey will be adamantly protecting its national interest in the region and elsewhere.
Professor, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights and opinions.
Thanks.
Donald Trump returns to the White House on January 20th. His journey back to the Oval Office has been anything but ordinary. From legal battles and political setbacks to assassination attempts, Trump's return was once deemed impossible by many. We examine how this unexpected victory has been perceived globally, including in Azerbaijan.
Somebody has to help this country, and if they don't, the country and the world are in big trouble.
With 12 days left until President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration ceremony, with his victory having already been certified by the US Congress, many now seem to have forgotten that his return to the White House was once deemed unthinkable. For the man himself, a comeback in some form or shape has perhaps never been a matter of if, but that of must, even when he bid farewell to Washington on a cold January morning in early 2021.
Thank you and farewell. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
In the years that followed, Trump faced tribulations and trials, being squarely blamed for the Republican losses, and many external observers did not deign to consider his journey from a diminished ex-president to a victor clinching last-ditch triumph as remotely possible. This was the case in July 2024 too, as Trump was doing his level best to turn his legal woes into fuel nurturing voters' anger, capitalizing on public discontent engulfing the country over inflation. He was also making his way through indictments, convictions and assassination attempts. Even when he stood surrounded by Secret Service agents, raising his fist in the air, shouting "Fight, fight, fight," after an assassination attempt made on the 13th of July, not his prospective victory, but future glorious failure that many thought would be possible. However, unpredictability, a quality generally associated with Trump's personality, was perceived in a different light by some others. For Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, for instance, his prospects were not so impossible. When questioned about the subject at the Shusha Global Media Forum in July 2024, the Azerbaijani leader did not shy away from making his views clear.
I am absolutely sure that you know perfectly well what preference I would make. And I think I am not the only one in Azerbaijan. As far as we are concerned, of course we look at this situation through our own prism. The decision will be made by the American people. It is their president that will be elected. But it is also of great importance for the whole world, because the fate of many and many peoples and countries will largely depend on the decisions that will be made by the first person of the United States.
Back then, Aliyev also stated that his country enjoyed very fruitful cooperation based on mutual respect, adding that relations with the United States were largely stable under the Republican administration.
During the presidency of President Trump, we enjoyed very fruitful cooperation, relations based on mutual respect and appreciation of mutual support on different tracks. Our relations with the United States were pretty stable, despite ups and downs which happened not on our initiative.
Therefore,
For Aliyev, Trump's campaign message, built upon an argument that there were no wars under his administration, was something deserving respect. Indeed, this evaluation of the Azerbaijani leader could most certainly be regarded as amounting to, if not an outright endorsement, but a subtle prediction,
and carefully constructed statement as to his preference. And when asked about President-elect Trump's return to the White House during a press conference on the 7th of January, Ilham Aliyev reiterated his earlier thoughts, reflecting on the prospects of Baku-Washington relations.
There is hope. Mr. Trump sends very clear, direct messages with his statements. Now, it might not be possible to analyze all of them, but I can say that the vast majority of them are shared by Azerbaijani society. Therefore, hopes are high. That's why I said that there is hope. There is great hope. This includes the possibility of advancing US-Azerbaijan strategic relations. I believe that if both sides are interested, we can elevate US-Azerbaijan relations to a strategic level.
Well, indeed, there seems to be a sense of hope in the air. The year 2025 will be different. Of that, there is no doubt. Yet, whether the perceived optimism surrounding Trump's re-election will materialize is another question.
European Council President Antonio Costa and Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev held a phone call during which Costa expressed EU's heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims, the Azerbaijani people and the government for the tragic crash of the Azal flight near Aktau. He also noted that EU supports an impartial and transparent investigation of the crash. The two sides also discussed opportunities to enhance EU-Azerbaijan relations. Georgia has declared January 9th a day of mourning after 5 children were killed in a fire in the Gali district. Our Leila Rahimli brings the details.
Hello, I'm reporting from Georgia as today the nation is observing a day of mourning. Let me start by explaining what happened on 5 January in the village of Saberia, located in the Gali district of occupied Abkhazia. A fire broke out in a family home. 5 children lost their lives in the tragic incident. The eldest was just 8 years old, while the youngest was only 4 months old. Their grandmother, who was taking care of them while the parents were in Zugdidi, suffered serious burns and is now being treated in a hospital in Kutaisi. According to the local residents, the fire started when the grandmother used a mixture of oil and gasoline to ignite the wood-burning stove. Sadly, by the time firefighters arrived, the house had already burned to the ground, leaving no chance to save the children. This is a common practice in Saberia, where the region lacks access to natural gas and electricity is supplied on a strict schedule due to ongoing energy crisis, forcing many families to rely on wood-burning stoves for heating and cooking. In response, the Georgian government has declared 9 January a national day of mourning. Flags across the country have been lowered to half-mast and many public events have been cancelled. Today, the funeral for the children took place. Prime Minister Irakli Kabakhidze expressed deep sorrow, saying this tragedy has brought immense pain to all of us. The incident has sparked a broader discussion about the safety and living conditions in Georgia's occupied territories. The Georgian government has urged the international community to strengthen mechanisms for protecting the rights of vulnerable population in these regions. As a reminder, following the 2008 South Ossetia war, the Russian-backed regions of Abkhazia and South Ossetia unilaterally declared independence from Georgia. Finally, here in Tbilisi, the tragedy has prompted an outpouring of support and solidarity. Yesterday, people came together not only to mourn, but also to demand better protections for vulnerable communities in the conflict-affected regions. And this is all for now. I am Leila Rahimli, reporting from Tbilisi, A News.
In business news, Rolls-Royce will invest $376 million to expand its Goodwood plant. The British luxury automaker said it plans to focus more on bespoke cars for high-end clients.
Rolls-Royce has seen rising demand for high-margin personalized car content from wealthy consumers, a trend also felt at other high-end automakers. Rolls-Royce said the Goodwood plant expansion is to serve customers for its bespoke services and coach build program. That's part of an invitation-only service where wealthy clients get to craft an entirely original motor car. The investment is the largest since the plant opened 22 years ago. Back then it said it made 1 car a day, but now produces 28 cars daily. Rolls-Royce also said globally it sold over 5,700 cars last year. That's down more than 5% against cars it sold a year before.
Egypt unveiled a series of archaeological discoveries near Luxor, including 4,000-year-old tombs of high-ranking officials and intricate artwork dating back to the reign of Queen Hatshepsut.
Archaeologists uncovered parts of Queen Hatshepsut's Valley Temple in Luxor and the nearby tomb of Queen Teti Sheri, grandmother of Ahmose I. Over 1,000 decorated stone blocks near Hatshepsut's temple were found by Egyptian archaeologist Zahi Hawass, who has led excavations since 2022. Queen Hatshepsut, one of ancient Egypt's remarkable female rulers, died around 1458 BC. Reigning as pharaoh during the 18th dynasty, she oversaw thriving trade, monumental architecture, and a period of peace and prosperity. Centuries after her death, her legacy faced deliberate erasure, with her images and inscriptions systematically defaced, and her valley temple intentionally demolished. Zahi Hawass recalled the decorated blocks as one of the most stunning and well-preserved scenes he has ever seen.
But this is the first time that we discovered 1,500 decorated blocks, the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen in my life, with the color. And this is the first time that we do have a final program of the decoration of a temple.
Hawass highlighted the discovery of Queen Teti Sheri's modest tomb, a rock-cut burial with red-painted chapel walls, reflecting Egypt's struggle after the Hyksos explosion. Teti Sheri, who died in Ahmose I's 9th year, played a vital role in stabilizing Egypt a century before Hatshepsut's role. Ongoing excavations aim to uncover the historical significance of her life and burial.
That's all from us for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.